Your mute button is on. This way. There you go.
There we go. I think I've got it all sorted out now.
Wonderful. Cool. Well, I'm just going to go press the live button on Facebook, and then we're all
Okay.
set to go
Just
to stream. You sound pretty
okay.
good.
And I'll,
Great.
yeah, I'm happy. I'm
Yeah,
good.
you look fabulous.
Oh, thank you. So do you.
Thanks. Yeah, that color is great on you.
Oh, thanks.
Okay, and then I'm going to hit, well, it's almost time, so I'm just going to, I don't know how long it usually takes to kind of get rolling, but at least it's all set to
Yeah, I'll
go.
just good. And I'll just make sure that I don't fall over again because that's no good.
Awesome. So I'm going to do a little like introduction about the Intuitive Arts Festival, and then I'm
Sure.
going to just ask you some questions and get you to tell everybody
Sure.
about yourself and all that good stuff.
Okay.
And
Wonderful.
here we go. It's
Well,
7 o'clock. Let's do it. Go
all
live.
right. Let's go. Let's go.
Yay! Hello, everybody. It's so wonderful to be here this evening. My name is Andrea Zonis, and I'm the organizer of the 12th Annual Intuitive Arts Festival. As you may know, we are going online this year so that we can still bring our community together but keep everybody safe, which is really important to us. So, I have some amazing people to be able to introduce you to this evening, and I really hope that you enjoy talking with them as much as I do. So our first guest, we have Niki Hughes. Welcome, Niki.
Hi. Thanks, Andrea. It's so great to be here.
So where are you calling in from tonight?
I'm calling in from Victoria, BC. So I'm a
Yay!
hometown girl. Yeah.
What area do you live in?
I live in North Saanich.
Oh,
So yeah, it's
beautiful.
lovely. Yes, I'm
Yeah.
very blessed. So that was one of the things on my grateful list that you asked us about was is where I live, you know. It's wonderful.
Absolutely. So, Nikki, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the services that you're going to be offering for the festival?
Sure. Okay. So I am a someone that has a message of hope and healing. And one of my biggest joys is being able to help people find that wonderful place inside where they can pull up all of those positive resources for themselves. I'm a hypnotherapist and a past life regressionist. I'm an energy balancer, a meditation teacher. I mean, the list just goes on, right? Just as you can see, I'm a lifelong learner, so I'm constantly learning. So for this particular Intuitive Arts Festival online, I'm going to be doing hypnotic sound journeying, and so that's kind of different. So I've taken, I like to be creative and take some things from here and some things from here and put them together and see what we end up with. So I've put together a 25-minute hypnotic sound journey using hypnosis and sound. So I'll be playing my singing bowls and my Tibetan bowls and some other sound tools while people that I'm working with will go into hypnosis and go deeper and deeper to that wonderful place where they can make some change for themselves and affect some healing. So I'm very excited about that.
Well, that sounds
Yeah.
wonderful. So,
Yes.
what can people expect by going on a sound journey? What kind of experience are we going to
Okay.
have?
Well, it's going to be really unique to each person. So they'll be very relaxed. So they'll come in and be in a very nice, relaxed state. They're going to go deep into that relaxation, and I'm going to take them to that wonderful little place where they may end up getting some guidance, some wisdom from their body or from a guide or wherever, whatever's out there waiting for them to talk to them. And they will also affect some sort of healing. So, what I'd like people to do is come into my session with an area that they'd like to work on. And then I will reinforce that healing with through the hypnosis work that I'm doing with them.
Oh, that sounds beautiful.
Yeah,
I can't
yeah,
wait.
yeah. So
So, how
it'll
did
be about 20, sorry, it'll be about 25 minutes. So it'll be sort of getting to know you for a couple of minutes, the journey, and then coming back out. So you'll be probably 20 minutes of the deep relaxation healing session.
Well, we could all use
Yeah.
some more relaxation in our lives, you
We
know?
sure can. Yes.
Because life gets so busy sometimes, and so we're like, off to work or like out with the kids, and so sometimes we
Yes.
like, forget to take those moments that are just for
Yeah,
ourselves. And I feel
that's
like
right.
that's something with the Intuitive Arts Festival, that it really allows people to go in, right, and to
Yeah.
like see that love within themselves, and
Hmm.
to feel that goodness that they have to be able to share and offer to the world.
Yeah, and they can do it from the comfort of their own home, which actually makes it a much deeper experience. It really does.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
I just wrote a little article about the difference between doing sessions in person compared to the feeling of doing the
Oh,
sessions online. And that was
awesome.
actually one of my main points, is that when
Okay.
you're in a place when you feel really comfortable, right?
Hmm.
And like especially in your home and in your own space, and like I'm also in my home and my own space, and we have that like level of comfort that really comes together and just allows us to be able to connect very deeply, because it
Hmm.
takes out that whole like environmental aspect to it. So it's a really beautiful connection that comes forward.
Right. Hmm.
So
And so I guess the other thing that I'm doing, so I don't know if this is going to come up later, so I'll just jump in now if that's
do
okay,
it.
is
Yeah.
the workshop. So I'm doing a workshop on exploring past lives. So past life work is one of my passions. I just love doing it. I have a radio show that I do once a month called Past Life Explorers on newsforthesoul.com, which is great. And so I bring people on the show that have gone through a regression with me, and I play clips and we talk about the experience, and we get to do a follow up on sort of how things have changed for them since they've had their experience with me. So it's really rewarding. So I'm going to be doing a workshop called Exploring Past Lives, where I will take folks who join on a hypnotic journey where you will get to experience one or two of your own past lives and pull up some sort of positive skill or positive resource that may be laying dormant, and we will go and activate it and bring it back to this current life. So it's a very, very positive experience. There won't be any trauma or drama or any of that good stuff. It's all positive. So you'll be leaving with another piece of yourself after the workshop, which will be great. I'm
Ah.
really looking forward to it.
Oh, that sounds amazing. And I love the idea of like being able to draw that positivity from those
Yes.
places, and to be able to allow that to be able to enhance your life overall. That's so
Mhm.
beautiful. So what got you into past lives? Like did you have like an experience, or like what kind of drew you in?
Okay.
Go for
So
it.
that's a great question. So it's interesting, the things that we're interested in as kids and that sort of flow through our life, we tend to turn that off when we get into busy life mode, when you're, having your family and working and all that stuff. And then for me, it came back to me a little while later while I was having sort of my spiritual awakening. So I was always fascinated with reincarnation as a child. And I just knew that there's no way that I would come here and just do this once. It seems inefficient. There's got to be something more than this. And so that kind of was a flavor throughout my lifetime, always wondering. And then I did a bunch of work around energy work, and so that sort of opened up my spiritual awakening side with acupressure and sound healing, etc., and Reiki. And then I had a friend ask me if I wanted to have a past life session. So I thought, okay. So I did. And I really enjoyed it and thought, I think I'd like to do this. And then I was guided kind of to do this by my own guides through an experience that I had. And I thought, okay, well, I guess I better do it. So I went to Seattle and went through and got trained on that, and then thought, well, if I know how to deal with things in the past life, I probably should figure out how to do things in the current life. So I went and got my hypnotherapy certification. So now I can do the whole thing. So
Amazing.
yeah,
So
yeah.
what kind of like healing experiences have come
Ah,
forward through exploring past lives and to help
okay.
people in their life now?
Right. So many, and they're all so different. It just depends what you're kind of struggling with. So I have had clients who have physical issues. So I had one woman who had a tick in her neck, and that was sort of isn't even really what we were going for. But it completely resolved after the session, and that was from an injury in a past life. Phobias. So I've had people, a woman who was really afraid of blood. A lot of people are phobic about the sight of blood. And that ended up being related to seeing her blood draining out of her after she was attacked in a sort of a massacre. And so we resolved that in that particular lifetime. Emotionally, there's a lot of things you can do to resolve emotions and things that come up that you might not realize or you might not recognize as something that has happened in this life. Like you have no idea where it's come from, but here it is. And I had a young woman, she actually came on the radio show. She had a real fear of men and trust issues, and she was quite young and couldn't really put it down to anything. And she went into a couple of past lives, and the deepest one that we went into, she was abused by a drug addict, and he actually beat her to death. I mean, it sounds terrible, but uh, she got to resolve all of that. And the really fascinating and fun part of that work with her, besides her healing, of course, was the follow up on how she was doing. And she said she'd gone into a job interview where it was a man, and she said normally she would have just shut right down, gone into complete anxiety, but she said she walked in there, she was confident, she smiled, she just sort of basically did an amazing job of this interview, and it didn't phase her one bit. Whereas, before that experience, she would have been completely shut down. So there's no end to it, Andrea, on the things that come up. And that's one of the reasons why I love the work so much, because it's never the same session twice, and the stories are quite incredible.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, because past lives are so fascinating. And I find, like, through some
Mm-hmm.
of the work that I've done with past life regressions,
Yes.
is that when you're going through that experience, it's not quite like actually experiencing it again. It's more like being
Mm-hmm.
able to view it from a new standpoint,
Yeah.
which helps to make
Yeah.
it a lot like gentler, especially when there are those, like, those big things that come up. And I mean, we look through human
Mm-hmm.
history and
There's a lot.
there's a lot, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yeah, and we have ways of having you go through it again. You don't need to experience it again in the same way, and there's ways that you can avoid even dealing with any of the trauma. So the last thing you want to do is traumatize somebody. So there's
well,
lots of ways around it.
yeah. And
Yeah,
so,
what you're looking for is the learning. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And it's so interesting, like within this line of work, because like with it, like intuitive arts, we're kind of like the
Hmm.
last line of defense, right? Where people have gone through the medical system and they haven't found
Yes.
any answers. They've gone through like traditional counseling and haven't found any answers. And so
Hmm.
they're being asked to be able to search deeper. And
That's
there's like
right.
so much that we can find within our spirituality that can
Hmm.
help us within our daily lives, and like also just to be able to create and manifest the future that we're wanting to create for ourselves and for our families as well.
Yes, I completely agree. And I get a lot of people who come to me when they're just at the very last, the last hope kind of thing, right? And, they're obviously really willing and wanting change. So it comes. It comes.
Oh, that's so
Hmm.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And so where do you offer sessions currently? Are you mostly doing work online, or do you have an office, or?
Yeah. Well, I work with people all over the world. So I do work online, but I also have a studio in my home that's a separate entrance, and it's a lovely space. And so for folks that are in Victoria that want to do in-person sessions, I am doing those as well.
Oh, that's so wonderful.
Hmm.
Yay. And so, what I want to know is like, what happened with your spiritual journey? What was it? What was that moment that just allowed you to kind of, I guess, wake up?
Yeah. Okay. So that's a really interesting question. There wasn't any one particular thing for me. It was sort of an evolution. And it started when I was really, really young. And I was so blessed to have a mother who was open to this kind of thing. And she used to take me to see psychics and tea readers and everything when I was in my early teens. And she used to say, let's just go have a peek around the corner. And we would just go and have a little session. I loved it because we were just having a little peek around the corner to see what's out there. And so she really opened me up to there's more, there's so much more. And then Like I said, you go through your busy life, and there was always this sort of niggling thing underneath that there's got to be more. I'm searching for something, searching for something. And then it started with Reiki. Just the fact that I used to talk in terms of energy all the time, and I found I could read people's energy. I was working sort of in a corporate world, and I was getting asked to go to meetings because I could just pick up what was really going on, which was lovely. So yeah, just being able to read energy, and so it started with that. And then I must say I didn't have a huge profound experience. For me, it was more just of an evolution. It just felt like a very natural thing.
Oh, that's beautiful. Yeah, because
Yeah.
there's so many different ways to be able to find our truth in this life. And like, it
Yes.
doesn't have to be that like one huge moment, like, just being able to like just step
Hmm.
forward and just like following those like breadcrumbs as they
Yes.
like lead you home and they lead you towards like, finding out more about yourself.
Yeah, and that's the fun of the journey, is following the breadcrumbs, because no two journeys are the same. So if you and I went to a class together, we would learn something, and then we'd go in our own different ways because we're on completely different journeys. And that's the fun. That's the fun part, letting it all unfold and going, oh wow, that's amazing.
So do you teach classes? Do you have any classes or workshops that are coming up or in the
I
works?
don't have any. I've done quite a few sort of 2-hour hypnosis workshops, not to teach people how to do hypnosis, but to come in and actually for a purpose, like quantum jumping, jumping into different universes to figure out new skills. Goddess workshops, all about love. Yeah, I've done it. I've got about 10 or 15 of them that I do when I kind of feel like it, right? So yeah,
Course.
a lot of past life stuff. So the training that I do offer is some energy training that I do with a partner, and we do level 1 and level 2 energy healing. So, and we don't have anything scheduled. We just wait for people to show up and want it, and then we put a class together.
Yep, when spirit gives you the call, like all the
That's
pieces
right.
just kind of come together, and
That's right.
then it just launches, and you have this beautiful creation of learning that you do.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much
Well,
for
thank
talking
you.
with us, Nikki. It was so wonderful to hear about the work that you're doing, and I can't wait for
Mhm.
people to be able to experience it, because
Yes.
that is where the truth is that you just don't
Hmm.
know until you have that experience, and it's that experience that can really change your life, and that's why we
Hmm.
do this work, right?
Exactly, exactly. And thank you, Andrea, for putting this on and, motoring forward to do this online. I think this is such a great thing to be able to reach such a wider audience. Yeah, I think that, it may end up staying online. You never know, right?
Who knows what
I
the
know.
future holds?
Yeah, yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
great. I think it's great.
Well, thank you so
Yeah, so thank
much.
you.
So I'm going to
Thanks.
bring on Cristin next.
All right. So I'm just going to hang up then, and you guys have a lovely chat.
Oh,
Take
thank you so
care.
much, Nikki. Bye. All right, we're bringing in our next special guest. We have Cristin Platt that is joining us. And just so you know, Cristin, your microphone is currently off. So if you could turn that back on there in the bottom corner. And I'm really
Hello.
excited. Hello! There you are. Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening on
Of
our
course.
show. It's so cool that we all get our own TV channel now that we have social media. That's pretty amazing. Oh, you're freezing up on me. Do love those glasses though. Well, as you know with tech, is that like sometimes you just have to be patient and just allow it to do its thing, because it takes time to work all of these things out. And goodness, like how far technology has come in the last 10 years to be able to bring us to this point is just so amazing. And I'm so excited to see what next is going to happen with technology. All right. I think I'm going to try to see if I can get her to come back in the room because it looks like her screen is frozen. Oh, and she's already going to come back in, which is fantastic. So the Intuitive Arts Festival has been happening in Victoria now for wow, the last 12 years. And it has been such an incredible experience to be able to bring our community together. And that has been, I think, my favorite part about all of this is just having like-minded people that you can meet and that you can talk to, and that if you have those, like, things that are going on, that you have those people that you can be able to relate to that with, which is so amazing. There she is.
My computer totally crashed.
I've been there.
Yeah, so I flipped to my phone, and that seems to be working a bit better.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Yay. So, Kristen, tell us about you and tell us about your work. I know that you're an artisan, and I have a feeling you do some other special things as well.
Yeah, so I do everything from, well, drums. Let's see, there's my big one up there. Drums, rattles, fans, mala necklaces, like pretty much anything hands-on. And I teach workshops and all of that, as well as leading meditations, journeys, past life regression, tarot. Um, and I'm a minister, so I do weddings and celebrations and all that kind of fun stuff.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Thanks.
What's your inspiration when you go to like make a drum? Is there like an intention that you have going into the process?
I can't, well, when I'm creating, I kind of let the items dictate what I'm going to do. Like I never really have a plan. It sort of speaks to me as I'm making it, and it kind of comes together. So yeah, and when I'm teaching, my big philosophy isn't, it's not really about the process, it's about the end result. You need to get where you're going to get, however you are going to get there, because everybody has a different way of learning, everyone has a different way of creating. And like paint nights, when everybody has to make the exact same picture, my favorite are the people who do like bat signals or like I hate this or something, who just go against the grain. They're my absolute favorite, because you really have to learn to just embrace it. And there was one time, there was a woman making a drum, and she just couldn't get the holes punched, and she was having such frustration. She almost walked out of the workshop because she was so frustrated. And my partner, who's freaking amazing, just went up to her and said, what's the struggle? And they actually talked about things that had nothing to do with the drum. And it was all about realizing that it's okay, I can do this, I'm not going to fail at it, and getting through it. And it was a huge transformational piece. And so, yeah, there's a lot of transformation and movement of energy that happens when you're making stuff with your hands.
Because you're
Yeah,
literally tapping into spirit and like just like channeling
absolutely.
that energy through and
Yeah,
then like putting it into something that's so beautiful. And of course,
absolutely. And when you're making a tool like a drum or a rattle that you're going to use in a healing modality, it's so crucial to know where it came from, why it was made, what your intention was, what your ancestry and history is putting into that drum, so that when you go to use it, it's very authentic.
that's beautiful. And so, what are some ways that you could use a drum within your daily practice?
You can use drums anyway. So a lot of people will use some smudge or smoke glassing to clear space. But if you have any allergies to scent, if you're asthmatic, if you have certain pets that can't handle that kind of stuff, drums, chimes, rattles, gongs, all of those things can be used to clear energy. They can also be used to, you can drum from like the feet all the way up to the head and back down again, and the drum will actually change tone when you hit points where you need to have some adjustments done.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't get it. I'm not claiming to get it. It freaked me out the first time it happened, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that's weird, but cool. And you can hear it. You can actually hear it change tone. Yeah.
That's amazing. So, where did you learn to do all of this? Like, how did this start for you?
Oh, well, I mean, my whole life, I've always wanted to be the little medicine woman or the little person living in a hut in the woods with like herbs hanging from their ceiling. I call it, witch in the wood chic. That's always been like, I was never the princess. I always wanted to be a little person with a pouch of bones or something rattling, and never quite understood why. And then I had the opportunity to take a drum making workshop with a Northern European ancestry, which is more authentic to me than any First Nations, because my kids have First Nations, I don't, but I have a lot of Northern European ancestry. And that ancestry, every culture in the world has frame drums and rattles and all these kind of things. So I learned a very Northern European tradition, and it was like remembering. It was I was done my drum and I was helping everybody else in the class. I'd never made a drum before, and it was just it. And I've been teaching drum making classes ever since.
Ooh, I get goosebumps about that.
Yeah,
Yeah. So it was just your calling. It was just like you just knew
absolutely.
that this is
Yeah.
like what you were meant to do.
And then I don't like waste, so I take all the scraps and I make rattles. And I use driftwood and shed antler and all that stuff for the handles, and throw crystals and fun things in them to give them different healing modalities. And then, yeah, we just sort of we pick up dead things and reuse them into fun things. So.
Amazing. So I was lucky enough to be able to win your door prize, and
Oh,
I
right,
got
the
some.
indigo rattle. That's right.
Yeah, and it
Yeah,
was like so beautiful. And as I was shaking it, like you could just feel it, right? You can
yeah,
feel the vibration. You can feel the
yeah,
sound of just that, like that washing away and that like clearing away of
yeah,
kind of the sticky
yeah,
energy, right? That can
yeah.
get to us.
For sure. And the indigo has got a whole other magic to it, because when you dye with indigo, it's a natural plant medicine. So it's what it's the natural dye that our denim jeans come from, which is indigotin. But it originally came from woad back in the time of the Vikings and before that. And it took a lot to process this. So the more efficient way is to use indigo. So you have to do this process, and the water itself looks kind of straw yellow, maybe a tinge of green in it. So you put all your product in there, and as you pull it out, and the oxygen hits it, it changes from yellow to green to deep blue before your eyes. Yeah, it is the coolest thing. I never get tired of it, ever. I film it almost every time I do it, and it's like science class. Get everybody around the bucket when you pull it out. Yeah,
Ah, it's like alchemy, right?
yeah,
Putting
totally.
in the
It
right
absolutely is.
ingredients and
Yeah,
like creating something completely different and new from that.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. So how did you become a minister, and like what was your call that
Oh,
brought you
I've
to that?
wanted to marry people since I could walk. I've always wanted to be able to be that person to marry you. In Canada, it's a lot more challenging than in the States. In the States, you go online, you do your little Unitarian, whatever, and suddenly you can marry people. In Canada, you have to be a minister of a registered religious body, or a justice of the peace, which is very, very minimal people, and they have a finite amount of time they can be a JP. Or you go through the very expensive celebrant school and become an official celebrant. So you have to get your license through vital statistics, yada, yada, yada. So I found a sort of sideways way that is halfway between the internet Mickey Mouse, certificate and a bachelor's of divinity in metaphysics. And that gave me access to the Canadian International Metaphysical Ministry, where I can get my vital statistics. So I had to do my bachelor's in divinity, but I don't claim that it is like a bachelor's of going to school for 4 years, but it's considered a bachelor's of divinity.
That's so cool. And so
Yeah.
what's involved in like getting like a bachelor's of divinity? Because I know that there's people that ask me like, where can I go to school to study this more? So
Yep.
I'd love to hear your experience.
Yeah. So this one it's called the International Metaphysical Ministries. It's out of Sedona, and it's all online. The bachelor's is 48 lessons. The theory is it's like one lesson per week, and then your final exam. Most people that I know personally, you do a lesson and then a lesson, then a lesson, and then it goes in the closet for, a few months, and then you binge it over a weekend, kind of like any distance course that you do, to be honest. And then when you finally get it done, it's all open book. It's not super challenging. Some of it it's like anything I teach. It's take what works for you and let the rest peacefully go away. But there's a lot of it was review for me from what I'd already learned from my mentor. And so got through all the lessons, wrote the exam and passed. And then you take your little bachelor's degree and send it off to the right people, and then they process it with a lot of money.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yep.
anything to do with government costs money.
Money. Yep.
Yeah, you can't escape
You got
that.
it.
Nope, nope,
Yeah.
nope.
Yeah. But it's really cool to be able to do those really unique weddings, doing hand fastings. I've done everything from really elaborate hand fastings with blessings here and there to literally 4 minutes before an ice storm hit at the beach and just the facts, get it done. Yeah. And then this last week, I got literally stuck up on a mountain. Our Jeep couldn't get back up the hill. Like, no joke. We were stuck. The groom in his wedding attire had to drive it like he stole it to get it out of the silt and over the mountain, and then realized he left the chains that we were trying to tow it with down below. So we had to hike back down and like haul them up. It was just a gong show. And it was probably the most fun wedding I've ever done. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Do you ever find like when you like follow up with people that there's like a connection between like the craziness of their wedding and then like what is like able to manifest for them as a
Oh,
couple?
yeah. Well, and these are, she's a really good friend of mine. I work with her, but they were supposed to get married in Mexico and they were moving to Hawaii with their whole family, and she was going to go for nursing school. There was this huge plan. Their whole plan, they'd given notice at work. They'd given up their house. They were living in her sister's like basement because they were leaving the country. And then COVID hit and everything got canceled. And then they postponed it for a few months and that got canceled. And they postponed it and then that got canceled. And she finally phoned me and said, can you meet us up here on this day? And it's just me and the kids and our parents. And so that's what it was. It was them, their parents, their kids, and the top of a mountain, literally at the top of a mountain, overlooking both lakes. And it was beautiful until we couldn't get out. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, COVID has really been hard on a lot of people. Do
It
you
really
find?
has. Mental health is taking a hit. I've noticed like I would hold circles and workshops and just really be available. I have a really hard time charging for teaching. I really have an intrinsic belief that information should be passed along in that truest form. It's information. It should not be bought or sold. It shouldn't be held for ransom. It should be passed along. But we live in a world where money is important for us to survive because of whatever. But that personal connection that we get from workshops, from those circles, from just opening your home to a for donation meditation or let's make some stuff just show up, we're missing that. We're missing that in a huge way. And it's really wearing on people. So having things like this where everybody can get back together, even virtually, and meet is really awesome. And I'm very excited because I'm also, plans are afoot to move back to the island. So I'm really excited to meet up with a lot of people who I will get to work with in person eventually.
Oh, yay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for joining us. And just to like finish things up, what
Yeah.
word of advice would you give to people that have been going through a bit of like a mental health slide over the last 6 months or so? What little piece of wisdom would you share?
Well, the best thing that I've been having to pull myself out, because I work in healthcare, so it's really challenging these days, is letting go of the physical and really sliding into the personal content and connections, picking up that phone again and going for coffee in a park where you're, close to each other, but, safely, and actually not just relying on Facebook to update you on lives. Really get back in touch with that. Pick up a craft you did when you were a kid and thought it was fun. Get out the sparkles and have a good time. Like, make a mess, it doesn't matter. But really getting back into your body and out of your head really helps to get you through the mental health stuff.
Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing, Kristen.
You're
And
welcome.
I'm really excited. You're going to be doing a workshop on animal guide.
Yeah, we're going to be drumming and journeying and having a good time.
Ah, amazing. I can't
Yeah.
wait. Well, thank you for
You bet.
joining us. We're
You
going to bring
bet.
in our next guest. We have Angel Jury coming forward. And if you don't mind, Kristen, could you put your website on our live feed just so people know where to find all of your beautiful drum
Absolutely.
malas? Okay,
You
thank
got
you
it.
so much. Awesome.
Okay. Bye.
Well, this is so fun. It's such a pleasure to be able to connect with everyone. Hi, Angel. Your microphone is off, so it's just on the bottom left of your screen
Ooh,
there.
can you hear?
Yay! I can hear ya.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Good to meet you too. Ah. So I was lucky enough to have a reading with you, and I have to say you are a really amazing reader.
Oh,
I loved, like, like everything that you said, and there was such like depth and like so much truth to it. And so, like, I know that I can like personally recommend you as a reader. So
thank you. That's beautiful. Thank you.
so could you tell us about your work and tell us more about what you do?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me to start off with. Yeah, and this is very exciting for me because I tried to get into this last year, but I had to go get an operation done. So I'm very thankful to be here this year in this whole new realm of things. I am an intuitive psychic, spiritual medium, professional card reader, energy healer. Basically, what I like to say to people is I'm a modern day oracle. Yeah. So in saying that, what I like to do is I like to help people align with their soul's purpose. And whether that be through channeling, mediumship, or the psychic abilities using cards, I just want to make sure that I'm helping people align with what's so purposeful in their life to go to the next phase, right? We all need that guidance. And I like to say that I'm thankful that I'm able to give that.
Oh, that's wonderful. Because, yeah, sometimes we just feel a little bit lost in this world, right?
Isn't that
And,
the truth,
like,
especially now?
yeah, absolutely. Because you lose track of, like, of where you're going, or you just get caught in cycles where you get so busy. And that's why it's so wonderful to have a modern day oracle to be able to lift you up, and like to be able to reconnect you back to that truth and to the purpose that we
Isn't that
really
the truth, right? Yeah. I mean, especially in this day, well, what with everything that's going on right now, everything's so unsettled, unknown. There's so many things that people, and it's almost like you're throwing out a life preserver. So that's why I kind of love this type of work because, yeah, rest with me, right? Let me hold you up for that hour that you're with me. Let me just hold you up and give you a little peace and sound.
Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
how did you first discover that you had these abilities?
Well, oddly enough, I always knew I was psychic from the time I was little. But back then, like I'm a child of, the 70s, right? So, and that was back then when you had ancestral shame and you never really told anybody because I grew up Catholic and we lived on the East Coast. But I always knew things before they happened and I always heard voices and I seen my guardian angel. But back then you just didn't talk about it because nobody, that was just taboo. So as I went through life, my background, what I grew up, well, my background is in business. So I was like a business coach and I just I couldn't connect. But the one thing that was always something that was constant in my life was the divine and spiritual and angels. And it wasn't because that was my name. It was always one constant thing. And cards always were in my, like always falling in my path. Or, I always had a box of cards but I didn't go that route. I just kind of went with the route that I thought I needed to go. And it wasn't up until about when I moved to the island here, which was 7 years ago. I hooked up with Nicole Powell, beautiful lady, love her. And she did some mentoring, and I did some mentoring with her. And it was just at that point, I just kind of went, you know what do you want me to do? Like, what do you want me to do? And it's just like, you just know. And so I opened up my business, Sacred Silence, 2.5 years ago, and I'm pretty much full time.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Good for you.
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So, what is your favorite part? Like, what is like? Can you share an experience that you've had, like, with a client that has just
I
helped
would
to just like
love
open you
to.
up?
Okay, so this, you look at me, just like, okay, so um, I had a young lady who phoned me from Alberta, and I said to her, just right out of the blue, I said, have you talked to your sister lately? And she says to me, she says, no, I don't talk to my sister. And I said, well, you need to get a hold of her. And she says, well, she lives on the streets in Calgary. And she says she has an addiction problem. I said, no, you need to get a hold of her. She has big news. I said, and I feel like, and along in the reading, I said, there's going to be an announcement of the baby. And so after the reading was done, I said, please get a hold of your sister. So she got a hold of her sister, unbeknownst to me. And then her sister was pregnant, third trimester, and she was living on the streets in Alberta. And so, anyways, they got her the help that she needed. And just I'm going to say about 3 months ago, I got a message, and it was just like, you don't know how much you mean to me in my life, because the baby was born and the baby's safe. And I believe her mother is going to be adopted and raising the baby. And they sent me a picture. So that was, that's, how could you not believe this, right? Right? So, so I seen the little baby, and of course I'm blubbering, crying. And my husband is the biggest redneck you'll ever know. And I told him the story, and he had a tear in his eye. So I think for myself, that was, I don't know, it was just, wow, I'm so thankful that I could have been part of that.
And to be able to give that guidance.
Oh,
That's what's so beautiful is that, like, sometimes like spirit comes in like so many ways, and like when it's just like us in our daily lives, we're not always like completely aware of it, right?
yeah,
And that's
yeah,
why it's so beautiful to be able to go to somebody else that can be like, nope, this is the spot, that's the one that one thing you need to pay attention to, right?
absolutely. And it's funny because when people come to see me, I always say to them, listen, don't have any preconceived notions of what you think you're going to hear here today. What I want you to know, spirit will take over, spirit will give you the guidance and everything that you need to know. And just please let them give it to you, because it's true. You know what, I'll tell you one thing, they know what they want you to know. So please don't think that, oh, this is what I want to hear. They're going to give you what you need, not what you want. Right? So yeah.
Well, the thing is that you can feel it. Like when
Yeah,
you're having like a reading, and like, it's like, that there's like truth that's coming forward. You feel it all
yeah,
over your body. It's a really interesting sensation, because it's not just an auditory experience or a visual one. There's like a real sensory experience that comes through in psychic readings.
yeah. And yeah, I do. And the thing I like too is the authenticity of it too. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's so real, so authentic. You can't make, excuse my language, a lot of this shit up. It's so authentic. And and when you see it hit that chord, like you said, when it hits that button with somebody, that right there in itself, and it's priceless.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, with your work as a medium, so you're able to connect with people that have passed and that are over on the other side.
Yes.
How do you receive those messages? Is it like more visual, or do you like, how does it work for you?
It's crazy. I realized that my body really is the number one radar to my world. Okay, so it wasn't until I started tapping into the five senses and realizing that there was more meaning there. Like, it wasn't just like being an empath and knowing and feeling it. It was just like that whole kind of like, oh my gosh, they're touching my body and I can feel it, or I can see it. But for myself, really, I really hear them. Like, I had one reading where a mother and a father showed up, and I said to the lady, I said, listen, and it's funny because when they come to my door, the people show up, I get goosebumps right away. That's my first signal, like, oh my gosh, your family's so happy that you're here, right? Do you get that too? Yeah.
Um, for me, I get more of a visual because I'm more
Okay.
clairvoyant. So I'll
Yeah.
see a person walk in, like a spirit literally walk in with the person.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, I don't get that. I usually get they like I get goosebumps like all over my body, and it's just like the first sign, like, oh, your family's so happy you're here, so giddy that you're here. So the one time I had the mother and father there, and it was funny because the mother was so overbearing and bossy, and the father was just kind of like not really saying anything. And it's funny because I don't really see them, I feel them, I know them, I hear them, right? And so I said to the woman, I said, listen, I got your father and mother here, but I have to be honest, your mom's a little bossy. She goes, oh, you can tell that to go. she, says, she says, I don't want to talk to her. She goes, I want to talk to my father. So I just kind of went, hey, it's, yeah, no problem. I can do that for you. Yeah. So it's more of the hearing and the feeling, and then they'll give me signs and the symbols. And I always tell people that I'm sitting with, please help me with this, because it's really like putting together pieces of the puzzle, and I want you to get the right messages. So please, you need to help me. Don't make me guess. Just, yeah.
Yeah, I've been around as a psychic for long enough to know there's a lot of those people that like to play test the psychic, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think that that's great, but it's kind of a waste of their money, because then they're not actually able to get something that's really meaningful like for them, right? And I mean,
I
you can
agree.
still get through, but you can only go in as deep as people allow you to go in. right?
Yeah, you're 100% right. Because yeah, you get those people that want you to tell you the VIN number in their vehicle. And it's like, well, that's not what we're here for. We're here to make sure you get the message, make sure that you align, and make sure that you find comfort in what we're doing, right? It's not to sit here and predict, what the weather's going to be like in Honolulu in 2012, you know.
I've had people ask me about the lotto numbers. I don't know if you've gotten that one
Oh yeah,
before.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so what I say that to them is that, well, I'm a psychic, and being a psychic is to see into the soul. And with the lottery corporation, it doesn't have a soul, so therefore I cannot
Oh, good
predict
one.
lotto numbers.
I like that. Yeah. No, it's and you know what? It just makes the connection so much easier when people are open to receiving, right? Because when you come in and you're tight as piano wire, it's really hard, like you said, to give the messages that you so rightly deserve.
And oftentimes it's trying to speak to them in their language too, because
Yeah.
people want to hear things just one way. And so what I'll find is I'll have a message and I'll like, bring it out, and then they'll kind of be looking at me, and so I'll like reword the same thing, and they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, for sure," right? And so that's like all about like, finding that connection and that repertoire with somebody else.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So you live on Vancouver Island. Are you up island a little bit from
I
Victoria?
am. I'm in Shawnigan Lake. I am in Shawnigan Lake. I have a beautiful studio up here it's just, it's an oasis, and I sit in there with spirit every single day. And that's like I always say to people, because you get the people that say, I want to do what you're doing. And I'm just like, well, you can, but you have to exercise it. Like, it's not something that you can just say, hey, I want to do that. It's something that you have to do every day. Every day. It's like a muscle, right?
Absolutely. And I find a lot of it is just really listening,
Yeah.
really listening to like yourself, and like also just paying attention to everything that's around you, because the
Hmm.
outside world will give you so many signs.
Yeah.
It does like confirmation of like what's going on like inside of you. So you're right. It's something that you have to practice, you have to utilize, and as you do, then like the muscle gets strong, and like the intuition just sharpens.
Yeah. It sure does. Yeah.
Ah, so what is a helpful technique that you would like to tell people that want to learn more about how to trust their intuition? Because I know a lot of people second guess, right? They get a feeling and then they second guess it. So, what advice would you give to help those people?
I always say to people that you got to be able to, one, it's trust, right? Okay, and like you said, it's trust. But you have to realize that the way that I feel my intuition, I can only speak from my experience. So that's what I would tell people. My experience is this: the ego really is kind of self-serving, and it always comes at you, and it really starts with the word I. I need to do this. I want that. I have. Do you understand what like? It really wants to be, it's almost aggressive, and that voice is you. That's your ego voice, and it always seems to come from the left side of the head for me. When I'm in my ego voice, it usually comes from this left side of the head, whereas spirit will always try to access the right side of the head, because that's where your imagination and creation is, right? That's where the creative energy is. That's where you're allowed to play. You're allowed to be the hippie. You're allowed to have that imagination. Because when we were kids, we all had imaginary friends, right? And that always came from the right side of the brain, whereas the left side is so logic. So why would spirit go through the left side of the brain to access your intuition? No, they're going to go through the right side of the brain. So I always say to people, just close your eyes and listen to the voice. Where is it coming from? And you'll be able to determine once you start to exercise that. Okay, I feel like it's coming from the left side, or I feel like it's coming from the right side. Now, if it's coming from the right side, that's the beautiful voice of spirit, because the beautiful voice of spirit always is, you know what, you can do this. We have this. I say it's the most nurturing, loving voice you'll ever hear, because from the time of creation, the first organ made in your body is the heart. And where does the spirit go? It lives in the heart, right? And whereas the ego lives in the body. So when you make the transition over, the spirit lives on because it comes from the heart, whereas the ego is going to die with the body. So when you listen to your intuition, trust the voice that comes mainly from the right side. And that's how I usually explain it to people.
Cool. Well, I'm gonna try that. I'm gonna like look at the right and left sides as they're
Yeah, like
saying.
once you start to and like really pay attention to that, kind of like, okay, that ego voice is always stressing me out. It's always making me accelerate at a pace I can't go, and it's always making me do this and whereas the spirit voice is, like I said, it's so nurturing. It's like, no, 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 you know what? Take a step back. I need you to go for a walk. I need you to, and it's always in your best interest. It's always in your best interest. So, but yeah, pay attention. You'll find the right. You'll start to hear it from the right side, and the left side. It always seems to be front lobal, right? That ego.
Hmm.
So
That's so cool. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And you're gonna be
you're
offering a
welcome.
workshop as well, eh?
I am. I created a course it's gonna be 2 years ago. It's called Spirit Journaling, and what it is helping people learn their psychic development, but through writing. Because writing in journaling is a form of communication, right? It really is. And when I had my sessions, all the sessions that I've had, one of the things that I realized is people don't know how to communicate. They really just don't know how to communicate. We're all born to talk, and communication is free, but we don't know how to communicate. So writing is a form of communication just to get the energy out of the body. So I created a course around psychic development and communicating with spirit, the divine, and using your journal, just writing your journal. Like, and there's all these different exercises you can that you use, and like the courses themselves were 6 weeks long. And so it teach you how to meditate, teach you how to access intuition, how to feel your five senses, the clairs, all those things. And of course, use divination tools with cards and stuff. So the course that I'm teaching that day, I'm going to mainly focus on using your five senses, not so much the clairs, but understanding the five senses before you hone into the clairs and what psychic ability you have. You have to know your five senses.
Like I love journaling because your journal always listens to you.
Oh my gosh, and it doesn't talk back, right? And
You
you know
get
what?
out everything you need to say.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want because there's nobody going to read it it's between you and them, right? So on the course that I'm teaching, I'm going to teach you a little bit about spirit journaling, how to start, and really the process on how it really takes you from here to there, and it really helps you express yourself in a different way. And like I said, that day we're going to do the five senses, 5 days of five senses, and I'm going to give you an exercise each day. You're going to do something that first day it might be sight, the second day might be hearing, and you're going to hone into those senses so you understand that your body really is the biggest receptor to your outside world.
Absolutely. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for joining us,
Thank you
Angel.
for having me.
Absolutely. And I'm so excited to be able to see your workshop as part of the Intuitive Arts Festival. And yeah, we've got, goodness, I think 17 workshops happening throughout
Oh,
the
wow.
weekend. So
Yeah.
it's like such a wonderful opportunity for us as teachers to be able to learn from each other. And
Yeah.
then for the participants to also be able to like, absorb and suck in some of this like knowledge. So when they reach that next part of their path, they know who to talk to. And that's really important is just like knowing where to go when you want to learn more.
You know what? The other thing too is you and your husband. Good job on bringing us to a whole new level. It takes a lot of work. Yeah, good job.
For
Right?
sure.
Yeah, good job. Yeah. So, and I have to apologize if anybody's actually watching me right now. I'm not technically advanced on everything, so if I blurb and goof up, it's live.
Well, we're all learning, right? Like this is the next evolution. Now that we can't meet in big groups like in person, right? It's that transition that we're going to online. And I know we did a Divination Divine online tarot conference. And I tell you, for the first hour, it was Adam on the phone, just like getting people hooked up to Zoom, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But, that's all part of that learning process. And now everybody that was a part of that has those skills. And there's so many participants that are coming forward to the Intuitive Arts Festival as well.
Well, I know for myself, it's really pushed me outside of my box too. Now I have people globally. I've got lots of people down through the States and Japan and Mexico, but I learned how to do I can do virtual parties now. We all look like the Brady Bunch, but it kind of pushed me out of my well, my studio. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting, but I still struggle with some of the stuff, but I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. Yeah.
For sure. And like it just takes time. And one thing I love about this community is that I would say it's some of the nicest people I've ever met
Yeah.
in like this intuitive arts like community that we have. There are people that are really heart centered and like loving and forgiving too. So, mistakes happen and like we move on. That's all.
Hey, it's, you know what? It's not a mistake. It's just a result. Yeah.
Learning experience.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly. Well, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, Angel.
Okay, we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Well,
Bye-bye.
up next, we have Wes Gietz that is going to be joining us. So I am just going to bring him into the room next. Hi, Wes. And your microphone is still off there. It's just on the bottom corner.
Okay, here we are.
Wonderful. It's so good to see you. Thanks for joining me this evening.
Well, you're very welcome. It's a treat.
Absolutely. So, Wes, tell us about yourself. I know that you're an author and you do energy healing and EFT and all of these amazing things, but I'd love to hear it in your words.
Okay, well, thanks for that opportunity. You're right, I do EFT, energy healing. For me, those two things kind of combine with each other. I've been doing EFT for more than 20 years. I've experienced immense healing with it of my own, on my own, for myself. And I do it online as well, which is wonderful because I literally do it around the world now. And as part of my giveaway, give back for all of the benefits that I've experienced, I'm offering free 30-minute EFT sessions, and you can access through them through my website. Can't pass up a chance to make a little plug here. That's my name, that's my website. So if anybody wants to contact me or have a look in my website for that schedule, it's an Eventbrite event, and it happens through my website is the contact for that. Another thing that I do that I absolutely love doing is I teach a spiritual path. I teach meditation. I've got a couple of self-study online courses in my website about that. And I also offer personal spiritual coaching and life coaching as well. I'm qualified as a life coach, and I really enjoy the spiritual aspects of that. And mentoring too, which is a different way of teaching. It really empowers a student, and I love doing that as well. And all of that is in conjunction with what I could refer to as a nature-based path. I have been trained in shamanic techniques, and this spiritual path that I teach is a nature-based shamanic path. I've had some wonderful Native American and First Nations Canadian teachers, and just really love doing that. So those are some of the things that I've been involved in. How long have we got, by the way?
We have about another 10 minutes.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
wow. That didn't take long.
For sure.
Often the way that people get together with me is initially through EFT and then in the meditations, and then that often leads into something that I absolutely love doing as well, and that is regressing people into past lives and helping them do some healing of whatever occurs in their past lives. And we go for a significant past life. And then part of that journey involves looking at a specific past life in the sense of re-experiencing it. And then that word significant becomes really key, because what it involves is looking at that life and saying, why did the person visit that life in particular? What are the lessons from that life in this life? And sometimes we have some really beautiful and profound learnings from that. That's actually the preliminary step to something that is, if anything, even more rewarding, and that is the life between lives journey. And it's an interesting process. You go into a past life, and then you get actually to experience the death of that past life. And you move into the realm where our souls go. And so many people say it's like going home. And when I think about my experiences there and what that's like, the baseline quality of all of that is love. And that love manifests as understanding and compassion and patience and acceptance of who I am and who I've been in my past lives. And one of the biggest aspects of that, one of the most powerful experiences that people can have often, is to understand why they're in this life. Because we choose our bodies, we choose our circumstances. All of the people that we incarnate with have come together as souls, and we organize how our lives are going to be. And in this life, we have two reasons for being here from a soul's point of view. One of them is so the soul can learn, and that often is tough parts of our lives. And the other one is so that we can make a contribution. And very fortunate people are the ones whose lessons to be learned and contribution to be made align with each other. And just to give an example, somebody might choose to go and work with really severely disadvantaged people in some fashion. And because of that, they give up things like a nice house, a great income, and those sorts of things. And sometimes they even find themselves alone. But their soul says, I want to experience that being almost on the outside of society or toward the edge of it, not having a great income, and I want to know what it feels like to give back in a really profound and powerful way. So that's a couple of the things that happen on a past life journey. I've done a number of them for myself. I've been guiding them for years. And one of the wonderful things about that work also is that it can be done online now.
Yeah.
Initially, a lot of people were very wary about taking those things online, but I've done some of them that way, and it really works. You just have to make sure that you build into the process dealing with the glitches that are almost inevitable, with technology having still its imperfections in it. So those are some of the things. That the shamanic path is also very strongly nature connected. And so in addition to the meditative journeys that we do, there are techniques for learning how to use your senses better and how to be more at home in nature and improve that connection in ways that before I encountered this path, I didn't know were possible. And it's so well understood now that one of the things that we as human beings lack or need more of is a better connection with our surroundings, our natural relatives, the wind, the waters, and all of the energies and spirits that occupy those powers as well. It makes us more whole, it makes us more part of this wonderful spiritual entity called Gaia, who manifests in so many beautiful ways. So that's kind of what I do, and I love doing it.
Beautiful. So, how did you get into all of this? What was like your first like pull that got you into this work and on this path?
Well, the initial pull was a winter camping trip that I went on with a brother of mine in Ontario. He handed me a book at the end of that trip when I was feeling nice and mellow by a guy named Tom Brown Jr. And I was 41 years old at the time, and my life was transformed by reading that book and then going and studying with Tom. So that started it. EFT, sometimes I almost say I was tricked into learning it. That's not strictly true. But I was invited 3 times by a guy who actually wanted me to embark on the path that eventually led to the writing of my book called Born Whole. And I just started to delve into that, and then the shamanic path that I learned from Tom Brown drew me into contact with a number of beautiful native elders, male and female, and teachers. And I learned from them, and it felt as though this was my path. And some of the other things, it's like, again, somebody just gives me a book and says, you should read this. And that's how I got into the past life journeys and the life between lives, was through that route. Somebody just gave me a book, and it opened up a new universe.
That
So,
is so amazing that
yes.
like one book. It's like I just love how there like one moment can like
Yeah.
completely transform your life. And
Yeah,
having that gift of that book and allowing that to touch you so deeply and profoundly and to feel inspired to go forward and to learn all of this is
absolutely.
so incredible.
Yeah,
Ah,
yeah,
that's amazing. So, EFT, for people that don't know, is called Emotional Freedom
yeah.
Technique. And can you demonstrate a little bit? So, there's a
Yep.
drop.
There's just 8 tapping points, and they are related to the meridians on that acupuncture uses, and they're very specific for emotion. The discovery of EFT was only made in 1980. The principles that underlie EFT. Acupuncture has been around for thousands of years, but what wasn't realized was that the meridians and the nodes in the meridians are also connected to emotion. And so it's a standard process. I have YouTube videos. If somebody just goes and searches in YouTube on my name, some of those videos will pop up. One of the things I love about it is that anybody can learn to use it. My contribution as an EFT practitioner is to help people peel the onion. You know, somebody might say, I don't like my brother-in-law. And then I help them recognize that there are specific incidents, and then we deal with that. And also, sometimes with EFT, we actually regress into past lifetimes where there's been a traumatic incident that gets carried forward. So it's a very wonderful and powerful tool to use in that circumstance as well.
That's beautiful. So, if somebody, I know that like this year for a lot of people, I've noticed it's a process of grieving, right? Because
Yes.
like we've lost this like old life that we used to have. So, what would you recommend for like pressure points for EFT that could help with that? You know, just that feeling. It's like a weight or the sadness around the
Yeah,
past.
well, you try and be as specific as possible. What's been lost? You tap on that and you get rid of the grief that accompanies that loss. And then sometimes when people want to maybe go back to a situation, we tap on a phrase like, even though the way I feel now is unfamiliar and a bit uncomfortable, and you tap on that so that they start to accept the new circumstance. But usually that happens fairly easily. Mostly what I work with is people who are grieving, and we focus on what's been lost or what needs healing and that sort of thing. And sometimes it happens, I will say to somebody, complete this sentence for me. If today my arm stopped hurting, tomorrow I would, and most of the time you'd expect them to say, tomorrow I would use my arm and I'd be so happy. But sometimes they'll say, oh my God, I'd have to take responsibility for myself. People would stop looking after me. So then there's another layer of the onion that needs to be unpacked. And it can get complicated, and with the years of experience that I've had and some of the other things that I've discovered along the way, I've developed some pretty sophisticated techniques for peeling the onion gently as well as effectively, because I think that's really important. Having compassion for whom I'm working with is one of my gifts. I'm very, very grateful for that one.
Well, it's like you said, like, you know, it all comes down to love.
It
And
does
like, you
indeed.
know,
Yeah.
as healers, that's a big part of what we embody is that
Yes.
we like hold that space and we hold that love, and that it's always the other person that's actually doing the work to be able to
Hmm.
heal themselves, but we just like hold that container to like allow them just to feel that beautiful energy. And
Yeah.
like love is always the answer, like you know that.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's like, and you meet them where they're at.
Mhm.
You know, that's really important too. And one of the gifts that I've learned, maybe the hard way, is compassion through that, through my own work, and sometimes seeing the effects when I was younger of not being compassionate enough and thinking, no, I do not want to make other people feel like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if there's people out there that are wanting to learn more compassion, because there's all different kinds of people in this world, right?
Yes, true enough.
So like, what kind of advice would you give for to people that are wanting to develop more their sense of compassion?
I think that what I would suggest to someone who wants to become more compassionate is to look at the other person and say, what would I want in their shoes? So a lot of it has to do, and it's not to be confused with codependency or um, being too empathic with someone else to the point where their emotions overwhelm you. It is just saying, what would I want in their shoes? If that was me over there, what would I be asking for? And then just saying, okay, can I give that? Because the answer is not always yes. Sometimes we don't have the resources to respond to someone else's need. But most of the time, I think that if we're in a good place, we do, especially if we are well embarked on our own healing journey. The healing journey is one of those things that is never over. It's like saying, okay, I'm educated. I have nothing more to learn. Never true. Yeah.
There's always more. That's the beautiful
There's always
part. Like,
more.
you know,
Yeah.
with like life and like living and just it's so wonderful to be able to have tools that you can
Hmm.
use so that if you're going through an experience that you don't just have to like hold on to it and like
So
keep
true.
going, right? And
Yeah.
when you have those tools, then you have the ability to start like moving that energy more quickly.
Yeah, and I'm
And
so grateful that I've been able to learn some tools. And one other thought on the topic of compassion is somebody once said to, I think it was a Tibetan teacher, he said, well, how should I treat others? How should I be with them? And the teacher looked at him and said, there are no others. And that is profound. That really touched me when I heard it, and it just opened me up so much to having compassion for others and for myself. Because a lot of healing, a lot of compassion, it has to start with ourselves.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, where people that are like really like deeply empathic sometimes get stuck about
Mm-hmm.
how to like, how to be able to share, because they share, so they
Yes.
give so much compassion to the world, but then sometimes they have like the challenge in being able to receive that compassion, or give
Yeah.
that compassion to themselves.
Yeah. You can deplete yourself doing that. And one of the things that I had to learn, it's part of the basic shamanic training, is how to protect yourself so that you don't give away too much. And don't deplete yourself, so there's always something for you to run on. My first aid training says the first person who's the most important person at a first aid, or let's start again, who is the most important person at an accident scene? And the answer is you are. If you're the first aid person, you have to look after yourself, because if you get hurt, you're useless. And that, I think, applies also in terms of those of us who do healing work. We have to make sure that we have the resources. Yeah.
Absolutely. I like that the adage of make sure that you put on like, your mask first before
Oh,
assisting
in an
other people with
airplane.
their masks. Yeah, for
But yeah,
sure.
I remember that. I remember those days. Yeah.
And I feel like healing is the same way, is that like, as a healer, a part of your responsibility is taking care of yourself
Yes,
and
a
making
big part
sure
of it.
that like, that you're centered, and that like you're dealing with your own stuff
Mm-hmm.
as it comes up, right? And it just always comes up. There's always
Yeah.
something new, but knowing how to be able to process is just so important. And it's so wonderful
Yeah.
that we're going to have somebody like you, Wes, as a teacher at the Intuitive Arts
Thank you.
Festival, to be able to share like, all of your experience, because I
Mm.
feel like, we're just like touching on the tip of the iceberg right now. Like I feel
We
we could
really
probably
are.
talk for hours and
Yes,
hours and hours,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah,
And so you're going to be teaching a workshop
I am.
as part of the Intuitive Arts Festival. Would you like to tell us
It
about
is.
that?
Yes, the workshop will be about EFT. I'm going to give an introduction to the basic ideas of EFT, and then talk about some of the techniques that I found really powerful. And then I will work with the audience as a group initially, and then I'm going to invite one volunteer to come from the audience, somebody who's courageous enough and has an issue that they want to deal with, and I'll do a live demonstration for the audience of one person. And it'll be done on Facebook, whatever, Zoom, obviously. But it's easy to work with one person at a time, and we just get everybody else to mute themselves, and then that person and I will do the work. And I've found that I get a really good reception when I offer a workshop in that fashion, because people get to hear me talk, and then they actually get to see how it works, and they can gauge their own reactions too, and do their own tapping while I'm tapping with whoever volunteers. So the beautiful thing about EFT is it's right now. You don't have to wait, for a 6 week delay until you've experienced some benefits. It happens immediately. Mhm.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
so cool. I can't
Yeah.
wait to experience your workshop.
Well,
Are
it'd be
you
nice to have you there.
are you also offering sessions through the festival as well, for people that wanted to speak with you or connect with you in some way?
I would like to invite anybody who wants to know more about EFT to contact me directly. I do have the 30-minute free sessions to be booked through Eventbrite, and that starts through my website. And I also offer a free 15-minute consultation with somebody just to explore an issue, and some of that has to do with the chemistry between me and the other person as well, just to know that we can work together. So, yeah.
Well, that's beautiful. wonderful. Thank you so much. And I'm going to make sure that I get that Eventbrite information
Okay.
up on our website so that people know that they can connect with you throughout the weekend.
Okay.
And we're going to get your book up there too, because I'm sure people are going to want to get a taste of that.
Yeah,
And who
we've
knows,
hardly
maybe
talked
that'll
about
be
that
the
at
book
all.
that will like change their life and like
Maybe
start
it
their
will.
healing journey.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Wes, and thanks for
Thank you,
joining us.
Andrea. It's been a pleasure.
Love and blessings to you.
And to you. Thank
Well,
you.
thank you, everybody out there
Bye
in
now.
Facebook
Yeah.
land. And until we meet again, we'll be back here again next
Yes.
Thursday. Lots of love to you.
Be
Stay
blessed.
well.